All right, so I'll go ahead and kick us off, and it's totally fine as people file in. So first, thank you guys so much for joining. My name is Anna Leonard. I'm really excited to welcome you to the second year of the Burnout and Work-Life Enrichment series. So like when Kate Zapay, Nithya Chawla, Amy Bartles, and I launched this project last year, we were all just kind of starting to resurface from the pandemic and noticed that we were starting to hear more and more people being more and more comfortable talking about their feelings of burnout and work-life enrichment challenges. And though this is honestly really sad to hear how much everyone was struggling, it was also really uplifting to hear the stories around how people were going through it and just feel a lot of togetherness in that, and how well attended that PDW was showed us how important these issues are right now. And we just really wanted the conversation to continue, and we wanted to kind of start taking on the idea of meaning. So this year, we're lucky enough to actually have 3 different PDWs on this topic throughout the year. So this first one in the spring, one in the summer, and one in the fall, ranging in topics from meaning at a personal level in academia to societal meaning. And then today we're going to be talking about meaning at the department, college, and field level. And I think it's all too common, really, right, for academics to wonder what the greater meaning of what we do is, right? Whether you're like really deep in the comments from review or two, and you're making changes to your paper that you don't agree with, and you're wondering what you're doing here. There's students, right, who are disengaged from what you're talking about in class because of the pandemic. So it feels, at least to me, a lot of times like meaning can feel out of reach. And so I think the goal here is we want to just reconnect to why we got in this field in the first place and find the joy and meaning that brought us there when we started out. So today we are lucky enough to have 2 incredible scholars and just all around humans here with us to talk about their burnout and work-life enrichment journeys, and more specifically how involvement at the college, the department, the career and the field level have helped them gain a sense of meaning. And both of these scholars have been editors at premier journals, they publish widely, and they're highly involved in their universities and academia as a whole. So we're lucky enough to have both Dr. Sherry Thatcher and Dr. Lisa Schur-Lambert here with us today. So just to briefly introduce them, and they'll be talking a lot about kind of their histories as well. So Dr. Thatcher is a professor at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville Haslam College of Business. Her research focuses primarily on diversity, identity, conflict, and fault lines. And she served as department chair and is currently editor-in-chief of AMR, where she's actually able to travel all around the world, giving workshops and kind of conference presentations around writing and crafting theory. And then Dr. Schur-Lambert is professor and interim vice dean for research and graduate programs in the Spears School of Business at Oklahoma State University, where I also am. She's just, I think, below me actually in terms of offices right now. So her scholarship's focused on employment relationships, leadership, personal environment fit, and research methods. And she served as chair of the research methods division at AOM and is past president of SMA. She's also co-editor of the ORM methods paper and is highly involved in karma, giving workshops on methods from a variety of different topics. So the structure of today's PDW is going to be, I'm going to turn the floor over to them for roughly 30 minutes to have a conversation around all these different topics. Please feel free to post questions. Amy and I are going to be monitoring them and might interrupt them at times to ask them. And then at the end, there'll be kind of a longer question segment. I also want to bring up that you might see that this is being recorded. It's not, the whole thing won't be posted. We're going to be editing it kind of with sound bites. So if you have something personal you want to say or something embarrassing happens, don't worry. Please don't hold back on account of that. We'll be thoughtful with what gets put online. So thank you guys so much. We're again so excited to have you here today. And I'm going to turn the floor over to Sherry and Lisa.
Well, thank you so much, Anna. We are so excited to be here. I speak, I think, on behalf of Lisa, we're very grateful to have this forum, to have this discussion. And thanks very much to Anna, Amy, and Nithya for enabling this to happen. I'm going to start with a question to Lisa. I'm going to ask her, I think when we're talking about burnout, it's really important to know kind of where do you come from? What's valuable to you? What is your personal life like? And kind of how you find meaning more generally, and then we can jump into this career.
So it's kind of a challenging question in a way. I guess to start with, I find meaning in doing the basic work of research. I do enjoy that. I find meaning in helping doctoral students There are so many things that I do really enjoy about this career. There's a lot of stress associated with it that some is external, but a lot of it is what I put on myself. So I'm often trying to balance the attention that I'm paying to my work and what I need to get done, what I want to get done, with making sure that I am calm enough to be able to do it, which for me often means I need to take time for exercise. I need to take time for walking outside. I really need to be outside. I like trees. I like to be able to decompress with activities like that. I need to find enough time to socialize with other people, to spend time with my husband. My kids are grown, so they don't need daily attention from me. But I started my PhD program when my kids were young, and so that brought a whole other set of stressors. So I'm not sure if I'm really answering your question at all, Sherry, but I guess that's sort of a start for
Yeah.
who I am and what I feel. So I'm going to turn that on you. How would you answer that?
Yeah, so I think, we're very similar. I grew up in Hawaii, and I very much have a love of the outdoors and nature. And so it is a way, walking, being outside, being near water is a way to reconnect. And I think that, through life, you figure out what you need and what you don't need. And there's times when you go without, and then you realize, wait a second, I really need to bring those things back in my life. So like you, exercise is really important. Family is really important. And I think, there's this whole world of balance, but I'm not sure that balance is accurate in terms of what we do, right? There's times when you're not going to be balanced.
Mhm.
But I think as long as you have a sense of when you're going to be able to get back to some of those things that center and ground you, then it can be it can help you get through those times when you feel unbalanced. Yeah, so I think that I have a similar approach in terms of trying to figure out how much exercise, how much nature, how much time alone, how much time with family, time with kids matters. And I think it's going to differ for everyone, right? So you need to figure that out for yourself.
Yes, I agree. And I would say this notion of balance, for me, it doesn't mean equal.
Yeah.
Because in that regard, I don't really have any balance because I do spend a lot of time working. But it's how much of each of those things that I need in order to feel, like you said, grounded, to feel strong enough to keep doing the things that I want to do.
Right. Yeah, agree completely. So what do you think in terms of kind of field level activities versus department level versus college level? Did you have an intentional approach to doing those types of activities, or is it that they happened and then you had to figure out how to make it work? Like, how did that fit into your life plan?
Well, I can't say it was truly intentional. And I did have one friend who was, actually, it was Jim Walk, when I was a PhD student, told me to never turn anything down. And I had some opportunities, like even when I was a PhD student, I was appointed a PhD student rep to the research methods division. And that was fun, and I learned a lot, and I thought I knew a lot more than I did, but it was a really good kind of volunteer opportunity for me. And that ultimately led to being elected to various positions, none of which I asked for, but they seemed right at the time. Same thing with internal service. People would ask me, I would do it. It took way past tenure though before I was told, the women around here, they're all saying yes, and the men, some of them say no. And it's like never occurred to me that that was an option. And I think it hurt me a bit because I probably took on a little bit too much too early. Some things could have waited a little bit, but I don't have regrets. I made the best decision I could at the time, and I thought that was all fine. One thing we don't talk about much is sort of the length of your career. Like, so, okay, so I didn't start my PhD program until I was 39. You know, everybody talked about, in polite terms, what kind of perspective I must have, because I was so much older, you know, all the things that as if, you know, 39 is totally ancient and now seems like a baby to me. But that meant that I have jammed a few more things in that if you are younger, you can take your time to do them. Those opportunities will come to you. And I think they're very meaningful. I really enjoy the external service. I also take a lot of meaning on the internal service. I like to be able to work with and help my colleagues and help set things up for opportunities for them to grow. And those opportunities are often there. And I think sometimes they do come back if you're not able to take advantage of them at a particular point. I've really enjoyed all of that.
It's great.
And Sherry, what about you?
Well, I guess I'd like to piggyback on this idea of the career being a long-term career. We're very lucky in some sense that we know if we enter this career what our multiple paths are possible and what look like. And so I think that we can make decisions that make the best sense for us. And I did a lot of this when I was going through my career, just kind of instinctually, but I realize now that I wish I had more people telling me these things, which is, you know, I made a number of decisions that my R1 institution, Ivy League school, was probably not super happy with when I first came out, because I was interested in doing research. I was interested in making an impact. I was interested in teaching in a way that had value. I wasn't interested in going to the top school and just killing myself to get papers out. I was interested in my family. When I came out, I was pregnant and had a dual career husband. And so I made a number of decisions that to me felt right, which was always, I want to be with my kids. I want to be with my family. And if I have to sacrifice how quickly I get tenure or how quickly I get articles out, then I will, because I guess I just had this sense that I would figure out a way to make it happen at some point. And so there were some hard times in terms of, you know, there were a couple of years where I actually had no academic affiliation. And I continued to work on my research. But because I continued to work on my research and I had that connection with the students and my colleagues, then I was able to continue my career when I went back to an institution. And so I think it's important for younger scholars to understand that you don't have to say yes all the time at the beginning, like you were just saying. You can say yes when it fits you a little bit better, or you can even go search out opportunities when it fits your lifestyle a little bit better. Say, you know, I was offered this, I don't know, associate editor position 5 years ago. I didn't feel I was ready. Now I'm ready. Is there a possibility? And so I think that one of the things for me that's really valuable about this career is the opportunity to create your life with the things that you like to do. And I know sometimes when you're younger, it doesn't feel like that, but it really does. It has a lot of flexibility, which is nice.
So how have you been able to sort of leverage these different stages and changes of your life in a way to keep going? I mean, you know, we've all seen a few people who really do burn out in a serious, and they find it a real struggle to stay engaged. What works for you?
Yeah, I think it's cyclical, right? I think we all go through that. So I think the fact that Lisa and I are here, it's not because we're experts on how to avoid burnout, is that we've probably experienced it at many times, and we figured out how to navigate our way back to finding meaning. And I think that's, to answer your question, just really reflecting on, what do I love most about this job, and how can I make some decisions that get me back to that point? And so, for example, just, taking the AMR editor role, at the time it was a great opportunity, and I thought, but do I want it? Right. And there's many things about it that, like, I don't know if I really want it, right? There's a lot of things about it that aren't so fun. But one of the things that I thought I would enjoy about it was that it gave me the opportunity to engage in intentional inclusion and develop some programs and workshops that really allowed me to impact people that might not have had this opportunity to know about AMR. And that's something that from the beginning, why did I go into a PhD program? Because I wanted to impact people to be able to meet their dreams. And this felt like, okay, this is a role where I can do that. And so when I submitted my application for it, my vision, I was really happy with the sense of, if they choose me, they want me to be able to do the things that I care about. And if they don't choose me, they don't want that. And that's okay, because I don't want to do those other things. I want to do these things that give me meaning. So what about you, Lisa? As you think about kind of the editor role or the other service roles that you've recently had, and you've had so many of them, what about them allow you to feel like they give you meaning?
Well, several different kinds of roles have given me different opportunities. So one thing I've enjoyed about SMA is that really it's a fairly broad organization in terms of who it reaches. And we have many different types of people who have different types of careers there. And I do think it's an honestly good forum for people to connect with each other, to support each other, to develop each other. And I believe in that stuff, but it also takes some work to put it on. And it's challenging to figure out how to put on a conference, how to put on activities when you have differences across people. And so I grew a lot through doing those activities. That was fun. As far as ORM, I mean, I remember when I was first asked to be an associate editor, oh boy, that was a big day. James LeBreton gave me a call and we talked on a Saturday, and I could barely stop from jumping up and down in my seat. So excited. And what has struck me is, well, for me, research methods is so interesting, so useful, because it's a way of seeing things. And I really thought that I would hate methods. I've told the story before, but I think it's important to realize my math skills are not good. I thought I would take the methods courses I had to take, and I'd be done with it, and then I could do the fun stuff about research. And instead, it opened up whole new windows for me to think about the things that we theorize about and that we want to test. And so that sort of sense of wonder and amazement that I had when I first started to figure this stuff out has never left me. And it's still what really, really energizes me. And so I feel so privileged to be able to work in that space, even though I still wonder, am I really good enough to do that? Because I'm not that smart. I see some things, I don't see other, there's so much that goes on out there that I only grasp parts of. So being an AE was a lot of fun. And at one point, Tina Kohler and I were talking at Academy. And Herman, I haven't talked about this story out loud very much, but Herman McGinnis came and talked to us and was just saying, so who do you think the next editor is going to be? And then he looked at both of us and said, you've been co-editors. And from that minute on, we planned because, we've known each other well enough, and we're not close. I mean, she's always worked in different parts of the world than I have. But we could be frank and we could agree, and we developed a strategic plan, and we, developed ideas for what we wanted to do with the journal and how we would express all that. And we were the first editors not to get tapped on the back by the people who had done it before. And we stood up and said, we'd like to do this. And we went to each one of them and asked, will you support us? Here's what our vision is. Here's what we would like to accomplish with the journal. And it was a little terrifying, but they actually all just said, oh, well, yes, of course. And so we're trying to do that. We're trying to find ways to bring more women in. We're trying to make it easier for people who are not naturally methods geeks, whether they're quant or qual, to be able to participate in that space and hopefully to eventually develop their own contributions. And I love that. I love that kind of outreach. I love that kind of trying to explain to everybody, if you do research, you are using methods. If you use methods, you have to understand what you're doing, and you might be able to learn how to contribute to that. And I love that stuff.
Yeah,
So
no, I completely agree with you. I think that's the best part about my job as editor is the intentional inclusion aspects, and the opportunities to meet with people who feel like they can't do theory, that it's something that only after you've been in the field for 20 years you figure out. I almost dropped out of the PhD program when I was in my org theory class because I was like, what is all this stuff? Like, I don't get it. But I think, theory and interesting, the way things work comes from anywhere. And to be able to give people excitement and enthusiasm and just some feelings of confidence that, yes, you can do it. Yes, you may not have had this class or training in this tool, but you can find those things and your ideas are great. So I think I agree with you completely that the ability to try to motivate and encourage is a fascinating and wonderful part of our job.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you think about your engagement with either the field or the department? Has that changed for you over time? And what kind of advice might you have for other people at different stages from what you've learned about that?
Yeah, that's a hard question. That's so much. I think that it has changed over time, right? I used to feel like, okay, I'm in my little narrow space of expertise, and the only kind of wisdom I have comes from that. And so just having the courage to say, no, I've actually learned a lot through my various activities and service initiatives that I can provide guidance in different ways or provide some help in different ways. And that's been very, very encouraging, right? To feel like it's not just, okay, I can give you feedback on your paper that's in this one little area. And so I think it's both a blessing and a burden. On the one hand, there's so many ways that you could now move into, or I could move into helping the college, the department, PhD students, or even like, do you take on different service activities in the different fields, or field activities, or, do you really kind of focus on a certain area and develop leadership skills that take you outside of what you've already learned because you know that you can do it, right? You now have the confidence that you can do these other things. So I think I'm still trying to figure that out. But it comes back to this idea of burnout. Like, I think I'm really trying to assess where I am and what feels right for me right now in order to, one, make a difference in a meaningful way that allows me to feel fulfilled and not burnt out. So I'm still struggling with that right now, I think. How about you?
I think I'm developing better clarity about what kinds of roles I'm good at and what kinds of roles I'm not. I can see some mistakes I made along the way. There was at one point where I was being asked to lead a lot of search committees. And it's a fun thing to do for your own area. But then there were some problems with search committees in other areas of the department. And so I was being asked to lead those. So I was leading the search committee for, I don't know, what is the supply chain and logistics people. And I was leading the search committee for strategy people, not just the OB people and the HR people. And it was happening year after year after year. And I should have said no. I should have said, look, you've got to find a way to distribute this. Just because I know how to do it doesn't mean that I should do searches for 4 positions a year,
Right.
multiple years in a row. And it hurt. It really, really hurt my research productivity for a while because it was so involving. But I made the mistake of thinking that well, if you ask me to, that's what you really want me to do. But that didn't change the standards for anything else. And I would have liked to have figured out quicker that I should have said some no to that. At this point, well, I certainly don't volunteer for things that are not things I want to do. So I try to make that very clear. I try to stay focused on the things that I think I'm good at. So for example, I don't do anything with undergraduates. I don't do anything with MBA students. I am a horribly boring person for undergraduate students. And at this point, my career experience outside of academia is so old. The world has changed so much. I really don't have anything relevant that I can give them in a mass way. So I don't. So I focus most of my efforts on PhD stuff, on methods stuff, and of course on empirical work, but I don't take on other roles that don't help play to something that I always find really exciting.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting, right? Like as you kind of just discussed, we learn about ourselves and what our weaknesses are, but
Yeah.
also what our strengths are. And so doing more with regards to where your strengths and excitement lay versus, where your weaknesses are. But what would you suggest to younger scholars who are, may not have either the assessment about their strengths and weaknesses, but also, I don't know, they feel like they can't say no.
Yeah, I think find a buddy who will tell you that you should say no. I mean, I really think there's a lot of opportunity for us, particularly for women, but for people in general, to learn from each other. And we often think we have to do it on our own. And to some extent, academia is kind of our own, but it's all teams for writing papers. It's all teams for doing all kinds of things. And people will often help you a little more than you realize. I've got a couple of friends in the field where they're like the only people I can make a phone call and interrupt them in whatever they're doing, and they're fine with it. And I think that's useful to have, and we can talk about these things, and I could say I'm being asked to do this, asked to do that, and we can sort it out. So we should help each other figure out what the right path is for ourselves. And there were times when I probably could have done that more, and I'm completely happy to do that for anybody right now. I think for people starting out, particularly if you're at a younger age, if you're finishing your PhD up by the time you're 30 or less, you got a long time. So you don't have to do everything all at once. And you don't have to go looking for service opportunities, because they will come to you. Don't start clamoring at journals to be a reviewer until you've written some papers that get published, and then they'll find you. I'm curious. You will get found. You do a good job on something small, you will get asked again, because they want you to now do something a little bigger. That happens. If there's something you really want, go ahead and tell somebody, I would like to do that. I would like to be involved in that. Make sure it's not beyond where you have the resources to do it well and to take care of everything else you need to do.
One thing I would also add, I think, well, two things. I think within a department or a college, it's really nice if you have either assigned or asked for someone who's a mentor to you, who can kind of have your back. If you're being asked to do too many service things, yes, it is hard to say no when you're younger and you do want to be, be a good citizen. But if you have a mentor who's able to stand up for you and say, you know what, we're putting too much on this person. We need to protect them a little bit more. That can be very valuable. So if you aren't assigned one, I would see if you can try and recruit one. A second thing I guess I would like to say is just when you're thinking about service activities, it can be really valuable to do them that are outside of your department in college in the field, because it allows you to make those connections and network. So like Anna, Amy, and Nitya are all relatively young in their careers, but they've created this forum and they've been able to network, they meet people, they interact with others, and they get their names out there in a way that you can't when you're just saying yes to service activities in colleges.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's the service outside of your university that is, well, for me, it's always been extraordinarily rewarding, but it's also the one that's going to help you leverage your opportunity to do other parts of your job well. Yeah, that's the good part.
Ladies, can I jump in with something from the chat real quick?
Yes,
of course.
So you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I want to there's a series of questions, and it's this idea of senior women are often tapped, to do a lot of things. And you've talked a little bit about, the value in saying no. Can you talk a little bit about your process that you go through? And then sometimes when you do say no, you're seen as less likable, maybe.
Yeah.
How do you handle that? And how have you dealt with that kind of throughout your career?
Well, let me say a couple things. I would say that if you're in a place where the service burdens really are falling unequally, well, point out to your chair or your dean or associate dean, whoever you're talking with, okay, so I'm doing these things. Which of those things do you think are not valuable? And here's what other people are doing, okay? So that there's awareness of that some people are taking on lots of service and some people are taking very little. And point it out, put it in their face and saying, I'm sure you don't intend to load all of the service things on certain people, because that would not be fair. And, obviously you're trying to be fair in this process. So you can have conversations, you can have them diplomatically. If I were in a chair position and I thought there might be, or if I came into it and there were some inequities in how services, man, I would literally make lists and keep track of what people were doing, because it gives you a basis for pointing out what is or isn't a reasonable ask of somebody. And you don't keep loading on the same people. And I give advice to my own chair, whether he asks for it or not, leave that person alone. This person is going to go up for tenure in the next 2 years. Don't give them any of those things to do. It's not a fair thing to do, and I try to advocate for people even when they're not aware of it. So I think it's possible, but you have to be willing to find the words to say, that's too big an ask, and here's why. And, you know, here's the other ways in which I'm contributing.
Yeah, I would second everything that Lisa says. And I think especially as we have more senior women in the field, that I urge, you know, us all to kind of be on the lookout for these types of things and to support and help our younger colleagues. I also think that this question about likability, one of the benefits of being a senior person is, yeah, you just don't care as much anymore, to be honest. I mean, like sometimes I just really can't and don't want to. And you know what? If they don't like me for it, it's okay. I'll survive, you know, but I'm not going to be burnt out and unhappy just so that I can be more likable. And so I think that's not something easy to do, but it's something that I've become, because I do like to be liked. I definitely have that urge. But as I've gotten older and in this career, I feel less of a need for that to come from these activities. Like I am doing a lot. I know that I'm doing a lot, and I don't feel like saying no is going to have that negative an impact. And if it does, it's going to be one or two people, and it's okay. So a lot of it is letting go.
You're muted, Anna. Oh, there you go.
You're still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So a great thing just got posted in the comments too, where when you reach a senior role, it's also on you to make sure that you aren't going to the same people over and over again, right? So trying to track for yourself, like who are the people that you're going to and tapping all the time, you know, trying to think more broadly about your network. And because some of those are opportunities, right, that you're also just saving for certain people, but also you might be overburdening them yourselves.
Yep, that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's another balance, right? So you want to protect people who are getting a lot of service roles so that you don't overburden them, but you do want to give them opportunities that will help them learn or increase their value in some way, right? That they're learning. So maybe there is a big ask that comes up, but if there's a reason that it can really be valuable to that person in terms of their career, then I also feel that it's important for us to ask and not for us to assume. You know, like for example, when I was trying to choose associate editors, I knew certain individuals maybe had issues or problems or things going on, but that's not my decision to make, you know, if they want to accept a position or not. So I also want to give people opportunities, and then we can have a discussion and they can tell me, you know, here are some other things I have to consider, and we can talk about what might work for them. But we also need to be open to giving them those opportunities.
I see that there's one comment in the chat about how it can be hard to say no. And that's true. But you know, it's okay to practice it and don't like if somebody came to me and said, you know, we want you to be the face of the business school, to go out and recruit, you know, more companies to come to the career fair thing. I would, that's a hard no. I am not that person. That does not play to my strengths. It doesn't help me do anything else. I don't have those kinds of connections. I don't even talk that language anymore. And by the way, my ears close up anyway when they start, you know, talking about industry acronyms and so on. And it's easy for me to say that now, but even when younger, you can deflect that by saying, you know, that really, I don't have the background for that. Perhaps another person would. What, you know, what else do you need doing that perhaps does play off my strengths a little more. You can say no without just sitting there and saying no.
Yeah.
It's a conversation. And you can practice that conversation with your buddies, the ones that you are sharing ideas with, the ones that you can count on to have your back and you can discuss openly with. So you talk those issues out with somebody that you trust, and that helps you find the words to say when you're talking to the person senior to you who is asking you to do something that really doesn't make sense for you. And this is not to say that Sherry and I are in any way advocating that you just say no to things all the time. I mean, there's stuff that has to get done. And we all need to take a part in accomplishing those things. But if you're an untenured faculty member, you're on the research track, you shouldn't have much. Okay. And that if they're asking you to do lots of things, something's wrong, and they need to find a new structure for managing that. I've been in places where the structure that we have is we hire really, really good clinical faculty, really good professors of practice, people who love that stuff, who absolutely love putting on the career fairs and getting more companies in. And so that's great because they have higher teaching loads too. So it's a balance. You can find solutions and not look ugly by just saying no, because you're still engaging in the conversation for how to get things done. And I've said yes to a lot of things. I think I've pulled my weight. So.
Yeah, and Lydia in the chat just made a very nice, but I think that's absolutely one very positive way to approach it, right? Is to just say, I don't think I'm able to do this, but how about something like this instead, which speaks more to things I'm interested in, will get me excited, will lead to less burnout. It speaks to your strengths. I definitely think that's a very positive approach. And again, the extent to which you can get mentors or service people or more senior people on your side to speak up for you, even when you're not in the room, that's very helpful as well.
Yeah.
Trying to read all the chats at the same time. But maybe while I know Anna and Amy are kind of monitoring those, Lisa,
yes.
Have you had any big challenges during your time as editors or in top service roles that you'd like to speak to?
I could speak about a challenge. It's not directly related to service. Okay. But I used to be at Georgia State before I came to Oklahoma State. And this is one of the things you might not want to put on the website, but I went up to be promoted to full, same time as my colleague Nikos went up for tenure. And we were positively reviewed all the way up until the provost level, and then we both got voted down. I wasn't going to stay. I mean, he found a job in 3 weeks. I took my time and used the next year to search. But by that point, and I thought I would spend the rest of my career there. I liked the place. But they had a new dean and some things changed in some fundamental ways. And honestly, that was turning into a daily struggle. So I thought, okay, what am I good at? What do I want to do? What do I need? And I started to search. And this place, Oklahoma State, they basically created a job for me. I mean, they needed some of the things I had, but I told them what I wanted. I told them the kinds of things I wanted to do. I told them how much external service I do. And they basically said, okay, those are all good things. We'll go do that. And so and this is a great place to work. It's much better than where it was before in so many ways. but that was a horribly scary, frightening, demoralizing time.
Right.
It was bad. It was really bleak, for a year until I sort of figured out, okay, I can make this work, and it did work. It's great. So it gave me the insight to know that, okay, I can still manage no matter what anybody throws at me now. I can cope. I'll be okay. And I'm much better about realizing that I have other options.
Yeah.
And that I can find those options and I can make it work. And that I can craft situations that work for me. Because I'm kind of an odd duck, as I've been told in the past. Otherwise, because like if I had a real job, that wouldn't go very well. So, but academia is big enough. I can make this work.
Yeah.
And that was a real learning experience for me.
Sometimes things that seem really negative at the time are actually kind of blessings in disguise, in that it allowed you to land at a place that was better suited for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I
We
think
have
one
a
of my,
question.
oh,
Sorry,
okay.
go ahead, Sherry. No, go
I
ahead.
was-
Please feel
I
free
was
to
just going to
finish.
say one of my biggest challenges with AMR was taking on the role during COVID. And so it was a brand new role, brand new team, and and brand new world. Nobody knew what was going to happen, and so and it was very lonely. I felt like being a leader of this journal and not really knowing what I was doing. I felt an intense pressure for trying to figure out how to make that work, and so it required a lot of creativity and inner strength to get past that point. And again, like you, Lisa, I think, I did what I thought I had to do, which was kind of like a lot of Zoom meetings with my team. And in the end, it turns out that we have this really great, strong team culture as an editorial team, which I recognize that many other journal editorial teams don't have, but we did it. It was just because we had to, but it resulted in something very positive. And so sometimes, I don't know, things often don't work out the way you planned. And so just figuring out how to make it work to your advantage, I think is a great opportunity that we have in this field to do things like that.
So there's a question from the chat regarding kind of the removal of tenure in some states, and kind of with the move that some states are making of kind of stripping that process down a little bit, what you see the implications being for faculty who are working toward tenure, or their doctoral students, or just the protection of research that might not be supported by the larger authority.
That is such a big question.
Yeah.
My opinion is I'm super fearful of where we will end up if we actually do not have these protections. And I think fewer people will likely want to come into this field. And I just think that there's ripple effects all the way up and down our educational chain that aren't thought through. And there's many I haven't thought about yet, but I just feel like it's not a good sign. I don't know. Lisa, do you have a different opinion?
Well, I see two issues here, and in some places they're intertwined, and in some places they're a little separate. One is the attacks on research, on speech in research, on teachers being able to say the things they need to be able to say that are based in like evidence and things like that. Those attacks I'm terrified about as well, and they will fundamentally affect us, our society, in a long-term way. I mean, if we go back to, well, you can't say that because it goes against my religion, and instead we have to ignore mounds of evidence on some particular topic or a particular point of view that's challenging to something, that's terrible, and very, very, very scary. The other issue is, well, job security. Tenure is nice. It does give you a feeling of accomplishment, and that's the thing that we've all been focused on over the years. But if the school is running right, if the university is running right, you have 3 or 5 year annual reviews anyway.
Right.
And those reviews should be serious. And if you are not doing your research, if you're not doing the work that was part of your position, those reviews should call you out. And after there's been a plan to try to improve your performance and you haven't, then you should lose your job or be demoted to a lower rank or be given more classes to teach, or whatever else is appropriate given the situation. So tenure should not be, okay, now you're done. That's it. Only if you feel like it, you can do more. And it has been that way at far too many places. So I'm all for making sure that we earn our job, or earn our pay, do our work throughout a career. That may switch and change, and I think that's all completely reasonable, but it shouldn't. I have seen people who are full professors who teach maybe a 2-2 load, and they haven't done any research in 15 years. That should not happen.
Yeah.
And that needs to go away. So if a university said, absolutely, we have these strong programs in place to reward you if you're doing well, and if you're not, okay, you're out of here. We don't technically give you tenure, but there's also a history of showing that people are given the proper resources and compensation to acknowledge the research they're doing, then I'm less worried about whether there's tenure or not.
But I also think there's a piece that, in addition to that, there also needs to be that the university is willing to stand up for you.
Yes.
If your research does show things that are controversial, or you are saying that in the context of your research. So there also needs to be that guarantee somehow.
Absolutely. And I think that should be there whether you're tenured or not tenured.
Right.
So that's why I said I think of them as two issues that are often intertwined, but don't necessarily need to be intertwined. It is very scary that somebody has to think about changing their research questions because they're worried about what a politician's going to say, or a parent is going to say, or any stakeholder in a university. That is horrifying.
Sherry and Lisa, do you guys want to maybe do one last question? Maybe is there a good wrap-up one on the list or anything like that?
Sure. So I guess, well, I want to first briefly answer Radha Sharma's kind of comment in the chat that I think that, reviewing for journals at the Academy or other is a service role. And so that definitely should be a service role that you do. But I guess the last question I have for Lisa is, if you could choose one thing that's a favorite part about your career, what would it be? And what are you most looking forward to in terms of continuing that in the future?
Wow, that's hard. Because I also get bored easily. So I like having a variety of things to do. I think the thing that drives me most is the excitement about learning something new and then sharing that. So that's kind of at a high level, that's a broad thing. That happens a lot with teaching, but it also happens when I'm writing a paper that I really like because I'm learning something new. That's the point of the paper, is to share it. And that same idea happens, sometimes in these kinds of workshops and PDW type situations. So that is the thing that I most cherish, is learning something new and sharing it, creating something new and sharing it. That's what I want to keep doing until I can't do it competently. And then I don't, I have to find a new purpose for my life in some way. I have to find some other way to give. And I'm thinking about that, preparing for that, but I'm not ready for that because I'm still having so much fun with that creating and learning part and sharing part.
Yeah. Well, if I were to answer that same question, I would say the exact same thing. I kind of thought about that before, and I thought, it's learning. And that's why service is so fun, and that's why research and teaching can continue to be generative, because there's always so many new thoughts and things that are happening that keep us on our toes. And without that learning, then a lot of what we do would just be kind of drudgery. But we're constantly meeting new people and getting new ideas, and that's really just a great part about our career.
Yeah, I agree.
Wonderful. Thank you both. Thank you both so much. I know that everyone joins me in thanking Lisa and Sherry for taking the time to just share a little bit. And kind of building on what you both said, I know I learned a lot from you, which was really engaging and insightful. So I appreciate all of our guests, that everyone, that participants that chose to come spend an hour with us and to learn from these amazing scholars. As Anna mentioned, this is the first of a series of conversation series. So we will do one on kind of bringing together two people that are talking more about maybe the societal level. So we write these journals, and maybe people read them, but a lot of people outside of our field don't. How have they found meaning by making a broader impact? And then our last one will be more of a personal meaning. So maybe they bring their personal selves into their research, or they bring some other way to find meaning on more of a personal level. So the next one will be kind of more later on in the summer. So please keep an eye out on the OB listserv to join us. But again, thank you so much to Lisa and Sherry, and thank you to everyone for joining us today.
Thank you for having us, and thanks for organizing. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it.